Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another DCU Daily. Again, just me for today doing another non-live show. Apologies, but Dan's still sick, so we're working with what we have. But we did have some news today. Quite a bit of news, yesterday, today, and I felt like it needed to be talked about because it was enough. It was quite a bit of casting news, quite a bit of casting news. There was a little bit more with the Lanterns casting. We got our one of our antagonists, hopefully not the main antagonist, but one of the antagonists that confirmed a theory that Nexus Point News was talking about a couple days ago. And then on top of that, there was a character that got cast in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow film, which is, going to be, based on the Tom King comic of the same name. And it seems like, with this addition, it seems like they're really heading into that direction. They're really adapting this note for note, at least, as much as they can with a big miniseries into one confined movie. And then there was also a little bit of candidness coming from Sasha Calle in terms of her losing out on Supergirl for multiple movies. And then finally, we do have a little bit of exciting, just an exciting tidbit in regards to the Penguin. But first things first is, in fact, Garret Dillahunt. He was cast as um, an original character for the upcoming Lanterns show. Now, if you remember from a couple of days ago, I was talking about how there was a rumor going around that Garrett Hunt, as well as unfortunately an actress whose name I can't pronounce, and I'm not gonna bother pronouncing it. Uh, so there was a rumor that Next Point News, these they were confirmed as certain characters. Now, one of those characters was played by Garrett Dillahunt, who was probably his most recent biggest um, movie was probably Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, ironically. So he is going to be cast as an original character named William Macon. Now, if see right here, William Macon is a modern cowboy and he a self-righteous conspiracy-minded man who masks his ruthless ambition behind a charming and calculated facade. McDonald plays Sheriff Carey. Now, as we know from, I believe it was yesterday, I was talking about Kelly McDonald as Sheriff Carey. I know some people in the chat were, unfortunately, I was unavailable for most of yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys in the chat. But somebody was saying, "Oh, Carrie sounds kind of like Carrie, which is shortened for Carol." So maybe that means something. Maybe it's. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on this. If this is if this is actually an original character, or they are going to make him into an actual like comic book character, or if this is a fake that like, oh, William Macon is like the fake name that they're gonna put out now, but he's really gonna play this character. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts with how this show is going and how it's kind of confirming the rumors I hoped not to be true. It seems like it's pretty much just gonna be True Detective with Green Lanterns, which is pretty disappointing. But considering Tom King was one of the executive producers and one of the writers, I didn't have a ton of faith in the show. And with these more recent additions and confirmations, it's a show I really can't get excited for, unfortunately. I don't trust 66% of the writers, or 66% of the executive producers. I don't like how there's an outside of the two main leads, we have no comic book characters whatsoever, unless this is all just, lying, and it's really like, oh, Sheriff Carey is really Carol Ferris, but they're like, you know, just putting it under wraps, and William Macon is really this other character, maybe William Hand. I believe that's Black Hand's name. Um, but yeah, I mean, I hope that um I do hope that yeah, William Hand. Haha. I was right. So, I mean, that's the main thing I kind of hope for here is that this William Macon character who sounds like a stereotypical, like, kind of right wing redneck douchebag. I don't know. I feel like he's playing essentially the character he played in Army of the Dead, which was not a very good movie, and he was kind of an annoying character. I get that was the point, but even then, I don't know. It just the more things that come out in regards to this show, the less excited I am for it. Like, and it wasn't very high to begin with. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe, not being excited for this show will get me, it'll get me those lowered expectations and then it'll surprise me. I mean, that's the biggest hope I can hope for because I'm just not excited for this. So, but I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on Garrett Dillahunt's casting. He's a good actor from what I've seen of him, from what little I've seen of him. Um, I don't like the fact how they're not like really feeding into the idea of a Green Lantern show. It's just going to be every other detective show, but it just so happens that Green Lanterns are the protagonists, and the likelihood that fucking Hal Jordan is going to die by the end of this is also very worrisome at this point. So I don't know. I want to be excited. I'm just not, like, as I keep saying, more news comes out. I'm just not excited. I just can't get excited for this show. The only thing I can maybe hope for is seeing Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan and Aaron Pierre as John Stewart, because the rest of the show I'm pretty much I've got nothing. Like I just can't. I'm just kind of deluded now. Like, it's the complete opposite for what it was for Superman 2025. Everything that came out about that, like, you got David Cornsweet as Superman, you had Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, you had, Nicholas Holt as Lex Luthor. The Lex Luthor thing was bothersome for me, but you did have such a great actor as Lex Luthor. So I'm like, okay, that's exciting. And then the suit, the overall look, the vibe, the crypto, the this, that, like almost every, like 99% of news about, like, Will Reeve making a cameo, it being shot in Cleveland and Cincinnati, being Ohio, the birthplace of Superman the character. That's where Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel were from. Like, every possible piece of news made me excited for Superman when I was, like, really doubting its conception at the very forefront. So there's that. Like, I just got more and more excited. This, outside of Kyle Chandler, which wasn't my favorite casting for Hal Jordan. He's good, but he's just kind of a B-lister TV actor, which, not saying he's a bad actor. It's just like when you had people like Timothy Oliphant, Ewan McGregor, and those guys being like on the short list, you're like, okay, that's great. And then you get Kyle Chandler. It's like, that's not bad, but it's like I expected more. And then we have, Aaron Pierre. I'm like, that's great. We have Chris Mundy, which was awesome because he worked on Ozark, and that was a great fucking show. So, from what I've heard, like, my parents fucking love that show. So that's like those three pieces of news are the only things that, like, is keeping, like, obviously I am gonna watch it because this is what we do here. I try to watch despite my reservations unless I, like, really hate it, like the Harley Quinn show. Um, but I just, everything else, it seems like the rumors are true. I don't like Tom King. I don't like Damon Lindelof. Like, very little of this show is getting me excited, and it hurts even more with the fact that the only other live action interpretation of this character we've gotten was the god awful Ryan Reynolds movie. Now, okay, I wouldn't say god awful. It just had a lot wrong with it. It's just Ryan Reynolds was miscast as Hal Jordan. I don't think Martin Campbell was an abusive asshole on set. It was co-written by Greg Berlanti and Mark Guggenheim, which from the Arrowverse showed that they really didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Michael Green is a very good writer. I think he just unfortunately got stuck with this. Everything. Sorry, I think I ducked out at there for a little bit. Everything about this show is just not exciting to me, unfortunately. I know that sounds a little depressing, and I know you guys don't really want to see that from me. However, if you're excited, that's great. I don't want to yuck your yum. I don't want to say fuck you for being excited for this. None of that. We don't talk about that here. But every piece of information, I just, outside of the three that I mentioned, I just can't get excited for this. But maybe I'm just looking a little bit too, I'm just way too skeptical. Maybe William Macon is really like William Hand and he's going to become Black Hand later on. And then Sheriff Carey is really Carol Ferris and all that stuff. That's like what I can hope for, but even then I'm still extraordinarily skeptical. I'm not really excited for this, but that's neither here nor there. But speaking of Tom King, we have our Ruthie in Supergirl. Eve Ridley, who is a name I am not very familiar with. I'm going to look her up real quick. Sorry, I should have done that before the video. But Eve Ridley, she was in Three Body Problem and The Witcher. Well, she's going to be in The Witcher when everyone has stopped caring about The Witcher since it's after Henry Cavill left. Um, but yeah, so she hasn't been in a lot. She is a she's 13 years old, which fits for the character from what little I know, which is a character that Supergirl meets on her travels. And Crumb, the main villain, or Crom of the Yellow Hills, kills Ruthie's father, and then Supergirl helps her out, takes her under her wing, and I think Ruthie betrays her at some point, if I remember correctly. Spoiler alert. Um, but I don't know much about this actress. I haven't seen her in anything. She's only been in like five projects. I think she was in like an episode of Casualty, an episode of Peppa Pig, and that's kind of it. So my best of luck to her. I hope she's good because usually child actors aren't the best, and that's not. I don't want to say, oh, all of them suck, or it's just they don't have the experience, like dealing with like the fakeness of the movie world and fictional places. And sometimes it's hard for them to like act contrary to reality. And but I hope she's good. I think this is, they pick someone rather unknown. I feel like that's kind of what they're going for here. They're picking rather unknown or less than known actors. Yeah, Millie Alcock has fucking House of the Dragon, but she's not exactly a household name. Matthias Schoenertz, I fucking forget how to pronounce his name, isn't exactly a, you know, a household name. Craig Gillespie isn't a household name director. And Anna Neguera's only has like one thing to her name, and it was like a play. So this has this is very much a movie that has very little to it. Now, either it can be a huge fucking surprise, or it'll flop fucking hard. I hope it's good because I want Supergirl. Uh, I want her to do well. Like every appearance she's had in live action has been less than stellar. You had the movie from '83 or '84, which was terrible. Then you had the show, which had moments here and there, and Melissa Benoist was very good in the role. It just she had horrible material to work with, and she was, trying her best, but that can only go so far. So you had that, and then Sasha Calle. We'll get to that in a second. Best part of a terrible movie, and it's not saying much, but that was the case. So yeah, I hope Supergirl gets a good big screen adaptation, proper adaptation, not just a supporting character or a TV show. I hope it's good. I want Eve to be good. I want Millie to be good. I want Matthias to be good. I hope Craig does a good job. I hope Anna Naguera, James Gunn has been pumping her up. Lenny, if you're watching, I hope you're happy with this little addition because I know you've been hounding for you've been fiending for Supergirl news. So hopefully this is something for you. I'm curious to know your thoughts. I'm curious to know everybody's thoughts. What are your thoughts on this casting? Yay or nay? Glad you went with it. They went with an unknown, or they're like, nah, that's not a. They should have went with someone more well known, maybe a little bit older or something. But I'm curious to know your thoughts. I don't have much to say about this one, but it is reasonably exciting news. But speaking of Supergirl, as I mentioned, Sasha Calle was talking about Supergirl, her being in the Flash. She was is doing press for another film, and she was talking about the Flash and what it was. So she was saying um how it was a very rough experience, bittersweet. But yeah, she was, she was there was a lot of rumors. There was nothing ever really confirmed in regards to this, but one of the directions they were going to go in was really abandon everything Snyder related, and Flashpoint, the Flash movie, Flashpoint was going to wipe everything clean, and they were going to make Batgirl the new Bat character. Like she was going to take the Batman mantle, which he would because I think that was kind of known for the Batgirl movie. Like Batman was gonna train her, the Michael Keaton version, and then she was gonna be the new Bat character, and then Supergirl was gonna replace Superman. And so that's what it was going to be. There was tons of rumors in regards to that. Who knows? Back when this was gonna be a full reboot, not gonna be a full reboot. I mean, there was a lot of stuff with with the troublesome production of the Flash, and ballooning up to $300 million and constant reshoots. And then look at what we got. They had to get Tom Cruise in, be like, hey, no, this is the greatest movie ever. James Gunn, say that this is the greatest movie ever. So yeah, it just that was allegedly the plan. But apparently she got very close to Leslie Grace, who played Batgirl in the canceled and shelved Batgirl movie, which is a shame. I do hope that she gets back on her feet soon. But yeah, it was she's talking about a confusing and painful situation, but they were there for each other, and she was really happy that they had each other. So that was, really good. And apparently, she was talking about it was very heartbreaking that she had to be shit canned. It's very confusing. She did her best. Um, and people, really connected with her. And, she was talking about how a woman like her might not have been able to be Supergirl, but she was eventually in the end, and she got to play that role, and she did a very good job. I think from what little we saw of her in the film, it was yeah, I think she did a good job. She was probably the best part of that movie. I mean, Michael Keaton was terrible. He did not fucking care. He slept through his performance. The fucking plot was horrible. They tried to do Flashpoint. It didn't work. Young Barry was unbelievably annoying. I got that was the point. You're supposed to find annoyance in your younger years, but it just didn't work. There was no connection to anything really of the comic, and it was just and then Michael Shannon was there because it's I guess, sure, why not? Um, and it was a mess. It's to me, it's the worst DCEU movie I've seen. Like out of all of them, it's definitely the worst. And I've seen all of them except Birds of Prey, which I refuse to watch. But I just, you know, I just think that this was overall just a very sad experience for Sasha Calle. I feel bad because I think she got like out of the three live action actresses, or no, Laura Vandervoort did. I know in Smallville. Sorry, I forgot about her. Most people do. But from what I've heard, she's probably her and Vandervoort were probably the closest to the character because I mean, I guess for the time for the Helen Slater film, like that's what she was. She was kind of like this airhead kind of character, way back when in the Silver Age, and then at that point in the Bronze Age, where she didn't really have much to her character. So I guess that kind of worked for the time. But the TV show did not get her character at all. She was just Superman, but a woman. That was essentially it. They made her a reporter. They made her like a dorky chick with glasses. They, the only thing that was different was, oh, she worked with the DEO, and that was it. Like, but she was essentially, the she was just Superman, but a woman, and that's not Supergirl. Supergirl's a very different character, and that's the biggest problem with that was with that show is like they just didn't, because the thing about Supergirl is that at least in the modern iteration, and that's the one I know of because that's the one I've read, is that she's a very like bitter, angry character. Like she still helps out, she still loves to be a hero, but like remembering Krypton, having her life like ripped away from her, she didn't grow up on Earth, so she always feels like an outsider. And even though she has Superman, he is more attached to Earth than Krypton, Nothing, I'm not saying he, oh, excuse me. Not saying he hates Krypton or anything like that. It's just, he grew up here. He sees himself as human. And so Supergirl has always been this character of like, I'm just an outsider. I don't fit in here. I'm not like I have nothing. I really have no one who understands my experience. And with all of that being usually seen as like a teenager. Obviously, the Millie Alcock version will be in her like early 20s. I believe like Woman of Tomorrow takes place on her 21st birthday, so she can go get drunk. But young adult is like the idea. And she kind of has like this built up anger, like in typical like teenhood, young adulthood of like nobody understands me, I'm depressed, I don't get these things, I don't like, and it's like it's a lot. And I think Sasha Calle kind of did really, you know get that with the character from what little we saw of her, because she is a very angry character, and I think Calle got those aspects done very well. Now, and I've been one of like, I don't understand race swapping or gender swapping characters, in this case race swapping. um I never understood it, but the thing is, it's like I don't really get it unless it like completely destroys the character and what the meaning is behind it. Then it's usually not that big of a deal. Like I've said before, like the Batman, Commissioner Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright, is my favorite iteration of the character. Like he was so fucking amazing in that role. And I personally, I think the best. Like, don't get me wrong, Gary Oldman was excellent. Jeffrey Wright just blew me fucking away with how fucking amazing he was. Better than Robert Pattinson as Batman, like no doubt about it. So it's like that's just, and I think that came from Matt Reeves being like, I didn't cast him because he was black. I cast him because he's a fucking amazing actor, and I wanted to fucking work with him, and I knew he would fucking deliver on this role. I don't think that's what Callie's saying here. It's just like it's kind of like you would never think that a character who was like blonde hair, white, and blue eyed would be played by someone who is of Hispanic origin. So that's cool for her. I mean, I'm not, brown, so I don't the representation isn't like for me personally, like obviously if you're Hispanic and you identify with her, awesome. And you identify with that iteration of Supergirl, that's fucking great. I'm glad that she got to be that for people, even if it was unfortunately in a bad movie and even couldn't, come back to the role and, you know, really deliver something great because she had a multi-picture deal that she mentions here. That was another big thing, is that she had a multi-picture deal and she couldn't, you know, um, she couldn't do that unfortunately. So yeah, she was talking about all of this, and she said it was important to me. I gave it my all. I loved what I did, even though it was a very rough experience, and that's fine with me. So she's owned her experience. She's glad that someone in her position could have played that character, and I wish all the best for her. So the next movie she's doing, that I think she's doing press for right now, um, is a semi-autobiographical drama in the summers. It won Sundance's Grand Jury Prize, so that's really good. So I wish all the best for her. Maybe she can come back in another role. Maybe she could be Jessica Cruz. That would be awesome to see. Um, it would be very different from Supergirl as a character. I don't think Jessica Cruz is Colombian though, so that might. I don't think she's Mexican. I think she was just Hispanic. She's a Hispanic woman. I don't know if they ever specified the country that her ethnicity is from, but that would be good. I would like to see her there, and if like they could make that work, just so she has another chance to play a superhero. I think she was given like breadcrumbs and somehow managed to make a loaf with it, despite how horrid that movie was, how horrible the leading actor was because he's a fucking piece of shit. So, there's a whole bunch of that. I feel bad. Like that's the main thing. Like I wish she could have gotten something, um especially when it's kind of weird. It's like Jolomar Duena had no connection to the James Gunn verse, like the James Gunn project he did. Because at least, okay, that makes sense. Peacemaker, John Cena, and the supporting cast, that makes sense to carry over. With along with Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, it makes sense. But like Jolomar Duena, it's like he's the guy that gets it, but not her. I don't know. I guess I found that to be a little bit weird. Again, showing that I'm not like a gun, nut. Um, no pun intended. Uh, that I'm not like, sucking his dick constantly. It's like, yeah, it's like, why not give her a chance? Why are you, but you're giving Jolomar Duena a chance. I don't know. That just is a little weird to me. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. Would you have liked to have seen Sasha Calle in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Or do you think, nah, Millie Alcock is definitely the right choice here? She had her chance, and this is an all new universe. Gunn, Gillespie, whoever cast her, made the right decision, and all that. So yeah, I think again, it's kind of the thing of like, I feel bad. I wish she could have gotten a chance. She was the best part in a shitty movie, and that's just kind of how it is. That's how it is. Like you get bamboozled and fucked over. That's kind of how it is. But I wish her the best. It looks like she is. That's ironic. She it looks like she's doing well for herself, so that's great. But moving on to, speaking of Matt Reeves, that I quickly mentioned there, going to talk about the Penguin real quick, but according to Samba TV, the top streaming programs, the Penguin 6 weeks in a row has topped streaming television releases, and I couldn't be happier. Now, this isn't like a major story. This is just something I love to see. This is just really great. Like, it's a show we've talked about this for the past 6 weeks, how much we've loved this show. I've talked about it. Liz has talked about it. Dan has talked about it, and Bridget has talked about it. We've all four of us have talked about it. We give it our overwhelming praise. We love this show. It's so good. Matt Reeves understands this character most definitely, and he gets it. Like, I feel like, because a friend of mine was talking about this yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, he's just Tony Soprano, but called the Penguin." I don't think so. I think he's more than that. As I've said in the past, they really get the freak dressed like a gentleman aspect of that character. Yeah, he's very little like his comic book counterpart, which I know can be a bit rough for some people, but when it comes to adaptations, it's like it's whatever you want to do with it. And I feel like they really get the Penguin here. They really understand, like, this is a fucking, he's a sleazeball trying to come across as like a real-time gangster. And I really like that. And I hope that, like, once Batman Part 2 comes into play, or at least by the end of this, like, he has actually like reached that, top of the world, I can't be touched, nobody's gonna fuck with me. It's like the Penguin isn't gonna be a fucking, like, slur anymore. It's gonna be who I fucking am. And if anybody, has a problem with that, they can go fuck themselves. So he's not gonna be a sleazeball, like, low level thug anymore. He's gonna be the fucking Penguin. So, I'm happy that this has been getting a lot. Like, it's one of those cases where I'm like, I didn't love the Batman, but the Penguin has been fucking amazing. Like, it's been like every episode has been like at least a 7 or an 8. 7, 8, 9, 10, I would believe. But yeah, I'm happy with the show. Have you guys, anybody who couldn't, talk about it now? Do you love the show? Do you hate the show? I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. Are you happy that it got consecutive weeks, number one, 6 consecutive weeks in a row? Or you be like, nah, screw the show? I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious to know your thoughts. But I just wanted to give it that little tidbit because I think, I just love talking about the Penguin. Um, you know, I think it's a show. It's a show that deserves every accolade, and that's coming a lot from coming. That's coming from me. That means a lot because I don't try to buy into overhype. I hate overhyping things because that can ruin movies and TV shows for me personally. But I still believe, like, I gotta go with the main populace here in regard to the show. I gotta go with the majority. And it shows, like, when a show is that great, I'll believe it. Like, for I didn't watch Breaking Bad for years because I thought it was this overhyped crap fest, but then I finally watched it and it was great. It's just like sometimes overhype can kill a show. And if you're like that, I totally understand. And obviously, we're not forcing you to watch it, but it's just the fact of the matter is, I try not to buy into that. I understand that people wouldn't like watching that, but I think it's a fucking great show. I do believe so. So I would say give it a chance. Give it at least like 1 or 2 episodes. If you don't like it, obviously that's okay. But I would say give it a chance. But that has been it for DCU Daily today. Not a lot, but we wanted to tide you over until Dan was fully came back into everything. But again, let me know your guys' thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on Garret Dillahunt joining Lanterns? Eve Ridley joining Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Sasha Calle's thoughts on losing out on Supergirl, her multi-picture deal, and how important it was for her to get that role, as well as the Penguin topping the charts once again for the 6th week in a row. Or just thoughts on Penguin in general. But that is it. Thank you for watching. We will hopefully be back to regular live shows next week. I'm not sure on Monday, but hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll get to, proper live shows back. But until then, we will see y'all later.